Number 6.
You keep waiting for the Minnesota bubble to burst, and they're on a 6-game winning streak, 7-1 in one-score games. You know who else is good at one-score games? Kansas City. Really good coaches and good quarterbacks are good in one-score games. Sam Darnold, in the last month, 11 touchdowns, no picks. There was an aspiring young sportscaster years ago that said he was going to be a great player. Hey, it took a while. Hey, all I know is this. Minnesota's really good. Are they great? I don't know.
Number 5.
All right. Minnesota Vikings. I was not waiting for that bubble to pop. I fortified it. I doubled down on it. I blew it as big as you possibly could get. And you know who's really been on this early train? Mark Sanchez. Mark Sanchez talked about the Minnesota Vikings before they even took a snap in the regular season, saying that the Minnesota Vikings are built to win now. And obviously they have been. Now, being so good in these one-score games, like, this is who Kevin O'Connell's been able to be. He was able to do that back in 22, I believe. And I talked about this when I did this clip as a whole briefly, so I won't go too into it. But it is interesting because he used it as a negative originally, saying, hey, this team's not actually good. They keep winning all these one-score games. That's really hard. That luck will run out. And now, like, they're kind of continuing to win these games, and it's like now seen as a benefit. Maybe there's just more respect for Kevin O'Connell. I think when you win a lot of these close games, a lot of credit goes to coaching because you have to be so smart with how you call and manage that game. It really matters. You know, being able to get that third down and not punt the ball, right? Getting that field goal, getting that touchdown, whatever it may be, like, really, really, really matters. The margin of error is so much smaller, of course, being as though that it is a one-score, you know, that it's, you know, being a one-score game and such a small, margin of error. And that's why you see the Chiefs and Andy Reid pulling it off. And, you know, you have the Minnesota Vikings and Kevin O'Connell pulling it off. And Sam Darnold obviously has been unbelievable and has been special this season. Like, no one could deny that. And it's like, the Minnesota Vikings are 11-2. And it is kind of funny when you think about that fact that they're 11-2. And it's like, can you think of a more disrespected team? I can't imagine many. Being 11-2, being a legitimate contender for the 1 seed, in the NFC, and yet it just doesn't feel like it really lands that way for many people out there. I think they're starting to a little bit, but again, if we're still having takes right now where we're waiting for the bubble to pop, like then you know, we've gone too far. All right, we're missing the forest for the trees here. We're putting the cart before the horse. Any little metaphor, idiom, whatever that we want to throw in there will fit perfectly. And so yeah, I just think with the Minnesota Vikings, what they have the ability to do is so fascinating to me. And it's so funny because I don't know if this is Minnesota Vikings fans, like jaded fans or haters. It's hard to tell with some of the comments, but they'll be like, oh, this is what the Minnesota Vikings do. This is the same thing that they always do. They're like really good and they blow it in the playoffs or something like that. And it's just like, guys, this is a different team with different players, different coaching staff, different quarterback, you know, a different defensive coordinator. Like, there's just so much that's different that what happened last year, the year before, and back, you know, it's like, well, let's talk about what happened in 2017 against the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, does that matter? Because the answer is no, it does not matter, right? It doesn't matter at all, literally nothing. So it's like this whole idea that, like, this is what the Minnesota Vikings always do. And this is what I talked about in my previous Minnesota Vikings video. Like, it really continues to drive me crazy. I got to figure out how to way to, like, not be driven crazy by some of these things where it's just like people doubt a team like the Minnesota Vikings, and anything short of them winning a Super Bowl essentially will then be like, see, I told you they're not good enough. And it's like that actually drives me crazy when people think that they're like correct, they're empowered by like wrong information, and it's like it's not true. It's just not true. If you doubted the 49ers all last year, and they ended up losing in the Super Bowl. You can't say, I told you they weren't good enough to win this, win the Super Bowl. And it's like, yes, they clearly were. They clearly were. Yeah, they didn't win the Super Bowl, but they were clearly a contender. So like that take would not make sense. And granted, not many people were saying that about the 49ers, but they are saying that about the Minnesota Vikings, obviously. And it continues to drive me a little crazy, honestly. And like I said, I got to figure out, this is a me problem. I got to figure out how to be like, because it just drives me crazy when people think that they've reached the appropriate conclusion based off of wrong information. And they're like, the proof is, well, see, this is what happened. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. You're getting to, the way you're getting there is wrong. Okay. Like it just is. I don't care if it even seems like you're right. It's wrong. Just because you close your eyes and cross the street safely doesn't mean that the way you cross the street is to close your eyes, okay? And it's just, I see this with the Minnesota Vikings and the Pittsburgh Steelers more than any other team right now. And it just, every video that I do, it just solidifies it. And I'm just like, I'm going to scream. I'm literally losing my mind with some of this stuff. And I know Minnesota Vikings fans feel it as well. That's also why I kind of keep talking about it, because I'll see in the comment section, people are like, yeah, like this is for real. And it's just like I said, it just drives me crazy. And again, I'm not going to get too lost at this point in terms of the rankings. Are they 6? That's, they should be 3. They should be 4. I've done this throughout the whole season, and I've been, this is one of my main takes that I constantly repeat. It's like, I put these teams in tiers, in bags. I put the Minnesota Vikings in that like top bag, essentially, where it's like, yeah, I have no idea. Come time playoffs, NFC Championship game, I have no idea who's winning the Lions versus the Vikings, right? I'm just not, I have no idea. Even if the Lions finish with the better seed, right? And then you're like, well, see, they're the better team. And it's like, no, I don't care. Even if they beat the Vikings both times, it's like, I don't care. I still think that they're both top, unless they absolutely dominate the Vikings. And even then you could say, well, that was just a really bad game. They just laid an egg. That game got away from them early on in the first quarter. Like, you could still explain it away, honestly. Now, if the Vikings got rolled and dominated the next 3 games in a row, then you would say, oh my God, are they unraveling? Like, yeah, that could make logical sense. But obviously, I'm not anticipating that. So it's hard to imagine that much could happen in these next few weeks that would make me believe that the Vikings are not a top contender. And honestly, like, I know it's hard to say out loud. I know, I get it. It's weird to say that they're Super Bowl contenders, that they could actually, like, if they were able to get through the NFC, like, I do believe that they could win. I think it would be very heightened. And I think if they're going up against a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, they would be at a disadvantage, mainly because of the experience of Andy Reid, Mahomes, Kelsey, Pacheco, Spags. Like, you would be at that disadvantage. There would be a lot of heightened angst for the Jeffersons of the world, for even the Kevin O'Connells of the world, of course, Sam Darnold. Like, that would be a lot, and they would really need to figure out, how do we get settled? How do we get comfortable? How do we find a way through this? And then I would actually kind of revisit the Philadelphia Eagles of 2017, because they had that similar experience where it's like, oh my God, we're in the Super Bowl going up against the New England Patriots, and we have Nick Foles as their quarterback. Like, and they balled out. Like, they were able to absolutely ball out. They rose to the occasion. You don't always see that. We've seen other great teams that should have the experience, that should have the ability, not do that. We've seen that over these past few years, whether it be the Bengals, the 49ers. Like, we've consistently seen that over the years. And so the Vikings, like I just keep saying, it's a fascinating spot that a handful of these teams really are in. And I joke, but a part of me really does want to see a Vikings-Steelers Super Bowl. I do not think it would be very popular. I think a lot of people, especially more general fans, would be upset, and you would have a lot of, the people who just kind of get together for Super Bowls. They'll be like, who the heck are the Vikings? Who are the Steelers, right? Who's Sam Darnold's girlfriend? It'll just be like kind of like nonsense, and it's like, no one famous, so get over it. Well, Russell Wilson's wife is Sierra. She was popular decades ago. Does that mean anything to you? But a part of me really does want to see that Super Bowl, because then it would be like, yeah, I told you. But yeah, these Vikings takes will continue to drive me nuts. It's that simple. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Minnesota Vikings? Do you think them being the sixth best team in the NFL is a fair ranking? Do you think this should be higher or lower? Do you think they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender? Are they a good story or a good team? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.